Day 3 here. We are going to cover UPD and BIM. How was everyone's homework from the previous day? Did you guys have time to do it, or you find anything interesting? Because I found a few things. No one did it? Or everyone did it and is being really quiet? See what I mean?
Yeah, I did it. It was pretty. I mean, I've worked in in QBIM before, so it was pretty standard.
Yeah.
For the most
Okay.
part.
A few of the things that I found while I was doing this is that let me just turn on the rep layers. There's two different verts on this job. There's the ones with the covers and then ones without covers. All of these up here, like this one here, doesn't have a cover, and then the rest of these do. And I guess you guys are denoting that on here with this hatching. At least that's what I'm assuming that hatching is. And then over here, they all have covers until you get to the door where they don't have covers. So I made two verts. Here's my data. Vert with extended cover, and then this vert here with just a normal cover. Then I also made a vert for the doors left and right because they have an angle at the bottom anchoring. I also separated out the channel. So if we look at that detail, so this is the vert near the doors. Normally we don't put in, I don't know about you guys, but definitely for Fremont, we never put in the actual door parts in taglines because those are taken off in a different way, which we could get into maybe at the end of all the lessons or something. But they're kind of separate from everything else. But we have this little pocket filler here. We have this angle at the bottom of the vertical. So this pocket filler here, if you look at the elevation, it's only going to exist where the door is. It's not going to exist past the door, but the vert itself goes past the door. So you can't put the pocket filler in with the vertical tag. It looks like I didn't save it after I put in the pocket filler. So it has to be a separate tag. There has to be a separate tag here for the pocket filler. I'm pretty sure I put it in there, but I guess I didn't save it or something. So yeah, there has to be a separate tag here. Yeah, it even still has the wrong, man, I didn't save it. But the vert also has to be different because of this angle here at the bottom, which I'm going to put in the same tag as the vertical because this is already a door specific detail and it's always going to have something at the bottom to anchor it. So rather than reuse the standard vertical, I'm going to have a special one that has this angle. This angle is always at the same spot on this vertical. This vertical is extra long because of it, so it has to be kind of different.
So is that the preferred method? You want to see a separate tagline as opposed to doing like a fixed length and adjusting top and bottom for that channel?
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay.
Because when you make it a fixed length part on this vert, now it only works at one door size, and you'll have to make another copy of it to make it to do another door size. It just limits your flexibility. You don't want to duplicate data very much. Taglines are easy to draw, and if this door changes height, maybe the drafter stretches this thing later on, you'll be completely fine because your tagline hopefully will get stretched, or at least you'll see that your tagline isn't as long or as short as it needs to be. It's just way more flexible if that pocket filler is a separate tag on this door and
Gotcha.
size to the door.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Let me do that layer thing again. Let me fix my tags because I'm going to need those to be right. And I guess I didn't save it. So this is 2 on 553. This is, oops, 1 on 553. And then the way I did the pocket fillers was I just went 1 inch like I tend to do. This one's going to run all the way up to here probably, maybe a little longer. I don't know. I can deal with that with adjustments. This one I put on the, because it's on the inside of the door, or on the left side of this mullion, I just put it right on the left side of the mullion. You'll quickly learn when you do this that doors are one of the worst things to do. They're actually pretty complicated because there's a lot of extra parts. They add a lot of time to your work. So this should be PFR for pocket filler right. And again, right meaning the right side of this door. And this is PFL, filler left. At least that's how I laid it out in my data, PFR and PFL. What other interesting thing? I put the door header in here, and I added the 2 door header angles. So that's a separate tagline from the horizontal. With the horizontal above the door head, it's the same as the other horizontal, except it has the channel for the that sort of fills the pocket underneath it. So I included that as part of the horizontal because most times it's the same length, it's the same everything with the horizontal. So having another tagline here seems like it just doesn't make sense on horizontals very often. But for verticals, a lot of the times these sort of light specific parts should be on a separate tagline because they're going to run a different length than the whole vertical itself. So this whole pocket filler thing is very similar to what I did over here with that break shape at the corner. Same idea. Also, there was this horizontal here is different than the others because it's at the floor line and there's a SRT. If we look at the detail. So this would be the same as any other horizontal that we have, except it has this part attached to the back of it, and then it also has this SRT sheetrock trim to the back, and then there's also this break shape. Usually we don't, at least in Fremont, we don't take off this break shape. Usually that's someone else. So I left that off of my data, but you're more than welcome to put it in. I made 2 taglines there. So if we go over to 509, I have a horizontal tag, which has that adapter at the back. And then I also did a separate SRT tag. And the reason for that was because I'm assuming that the SRT tag, or the SRT itself, could be one piece. This thing's only 21 feet across. And usually that's the last thing that the field will put in. So they'll have to put these horizontals. These horizontals will have adapters, 1 adapter per horizontal that was pre-attached by the shop. And then this SRT would be snapped across all of them from the inside of the building once everything's up. And that's just a cleaner look on the inside. So again, different tag, mostly because I wanted a different length or a different ratio of parts. So there's 1 SRT per 6 horizontals here. So I had to split it up into different tags. Does that kind of make sense?
Yep.
You may end up doing that with extended covers as well. If you had horizontal covers that went across the whole elevation, you would probably do the same exact thing. All right. So onto my outline here. Oh, and I ran layout and created new parts for all that stuff. So it took a while. So I think from now on, our homework will probably just focus on this elevation, just because doing it for all of these elevations starts to add up time-wise. Though we will probably explore this because this one has a splice in it, and there's some interesting stuff that happens there. But we'll only explore this just for that splice. So most of your homework will just sit here on elevation 2. Doors are bad enough without adding more elevations to it. All right. So I just wanted to talk a bit about our metal takeoff philosophy. Usually metal takeoff has to come first because we have to order metal, and there's a pretty large lead time on getting that metal. So we have to figure out exactly how much of each part we need so that we can have it in the shop by the time they need to fabricate it. So the way I'm approaching these lessons is I'm assuming that you're going to want a metal takeoff, and then after that you're going to refine your data more to get your final fab tickets, because again, we need to get these 4 things correct to have a complete metal takeoff. We need the right part, which we learned how to do yesterday, putting them in the UD window. We need them in the right place. So that's a combination of that first day and yesterday, where we added the taglines and we ran layout on all the parts. So the Takeoff program knows where every part is. Today, we're going to focus on getting the right length. So, which is a combination of the taglines and your data and the BIM model that we're going to make today. And also, if we have time, we'll get the right finish on all the parts. Once you have all 4 of these everywhere, then you're pretty much done with the metal takeoff, and you can give an output. So that's why I'm kind of ignoring a lot of the little things inside the UD window. This is the UD window. I'm ignoring a lot of these boxes because they just don't matter for the metal takeoff at this point. It would be nice to be able to fill all this stuff in so you won't have to type it in a whole bunch of different places. But just to keep the lessons more pared down, more focused, I'm ignoring a lot of these little things. All right. So we got right part, right place. Let's start working on lengths. So we're going to go over UPD next. And this is a command we run in AutoCAD. And it takes all the data from your taglines and all your data that you've entered in the UD window and combines it all together to to calculate all the answers, basically, all what parts are where and how long. So let's run that now. Make sure you have the right database open. If you were working when we were offline on a different database, you don't want to UPD this training stuff into your main database. That would be really bad. So make sure you have the right one open before you run UPD. So I got the right thing open, gonna run UPD. There's also a button for UPD. It's up here, update database. This is a new sheet, never ran UPD on it before. So when that happens, every elevation number, it's gonna ask you what the total quantity is. This is mainly for punched openings, that kind of stuff. There will be like a quantity down here. Like this one says 1 required. I'm assuming because these are curtain walls, they're all 1 required. So right now I'm just going to put 1 for all these elevations that it's going to ask me about. You can change that later, but that's mostly there as a reminder that you need to put in some quantities so your metal takeoff will be correct. So also when it encounters parts that it's never seen before, that aren't on the server with a with a prefix that we've assigned to it, it will try and it'll ask you if you want to add, just call them MMs, which is for miscellaneous metal. That's what that's short for. I'm going to say no just to see what happens. But if I say no, it's going to ask me about each part that it doesn't know what to call, like what mark number or prefix it wants to use. I don't think there's that many on here, so I'll just say no, and then I'll type them in as I go. So this is what part is that?
It's on the door head, the head of the door.
The door head. Really?
I think that's where that was. Oh no, that's the one. That's the one. It's the cap on the vertical. That triangular cap.
Yeah, it's the vertical cover, right? So usually that's EC for extended cover. So I'll just change the prefix to EC there. This is some break shape, so I'll use BS for break shape. You could also just type that whole name in if you want the mark number prefix to be that whole thing, but I don't really want to see that on a stick wall. So now this one is the actual SRT, I believe. So I'm going to put SRT. This is the adapter for the SRT, the thing that's screwed on. So I don't know what I'd call this. I don't think we even have a standard for something like that. I'll just leave that MM. And that was it. All right, a whole mess of mark numbers. That's a good thing. So what we got here is what it did is it took all the data, all the parts that we had assigned to each one of these taglines, figured out how long those parts are based on the tagline length and some of the other data, and it assigned a mark number to each part. So each unique part with a unique length and a unique finish gets a mark number here. And these are all, these are the mark numbers that the field will see so that they know where to put everything. Now, this is a giant mess right now because all the shear butt clips are showing. Some of these parts, a lot of them, are pre-attached, pre-assembled to something in the shop, so we don't actually want them on this sheet. But for now, we're just going to leave it like this. This is actually a pretty good indicator that we're getting something everywhere. Like this elevation looks good. It looks like I'm getting something at every tagline. But this one is a little off. For whatever reason, it doesn't look like there's mark numbers in this bay. It's interesting. Oh, see, it changed the detail number to 302 on this because this bubble with this line changed all the details for here. So what UPD does, one of the many things that it does, is it will look for lines on the Rep 1 layer with a bubble that also touches it. And any tagline that crosses this will get that detail number. You can see even my head can is 302 now. This one's 1 on 302. They all just changed to 1 on 302 because this thing was on Rep 1. It didn't do it for all these other details because they're on Rep 2, which is ignored for that feature. So kind of wish I changed that. I'd probably just undo back. Over here, nothing came out on this vertical for some reason. I called it corner L. This is the other side of this corner. I forgot to mention this. And you only want one vertical, right? And I chose to put the vertical here. So I don't want to take off 2 verticals in that spot because the corner only has 1. So I just left this one empty, and that's why there's no mark number there, which is actually right. So it looks like my only big problem here is this guy. So I'm going to go into the drafting layer and just swap this out for the Rep 2 layer. So it'll be white. Actually, let me undo. Just undo back. Now, when you undo, you're only undoing the stuff that happened to this drawing, right? You're not undoing anything that happened to the database. So, so just hitting undo won't undo your UPD, but it's a convenient way to go backwards and prevent these taglines from switching their detail number. So swap that out. Oh, it's locked. I'll have to go to LM1 to change it. Put it on rep 2, LMM, UPD. So it's not going to ask me about quantities or any of those mark number things anymore because I already did that. And now I have mark numbers in this bay. I also have, looks like, oh, here's the vert. And the other vert is up here. So yeah, I am getting the 2 sets of verticals, which is perfect. Getting channels here. That's what the CH is channel. Yeah, everything looks pretty good other than that little detail thing. So whenever you change something in the drawing, like if you change taglines, you move them around or change their detail number, or you change any of this data in here, none of that will be reflected in your actual takeoff, your actual metal parts until you run UPD. UPD is the function that makes the takeoff program reprocess this sheet and figure out everything on it, what its length is, what its finish actually is. So anytime you make any sort of change, you need to run UPD to see that change and see what the result is going to be. So you will end up running UPD quite frequently, and you'll hear people talking about it. I ran UPD, blah, blah, blah. I need to UPD this. I need to UPD that. It's kind of part of the Takeoff program lingo. Right.
Since you're talking about UPD, and did you want to talk about refreshing the data also?
Yes. So over here in the UD window, this is just a snapshot of what it thinks is in the database at that, or what you last loaded from the database. You can make changes here, and when you hit apply, you send those changes to the database. But if you have more than one person, and that works all great if there's only one person working on the database. If there's more than one person, then any changes that they make in their own UD window that they push to the database, you don't see that at all. Like if someone else was in the same database and they started adding a bunch of details here, or even changing some of the details I have already in here, I won't see any of those changes. The only way to see that is to hit this refresh button here. And that just tells this window to kind of erase all this stuff. Like, don't just discard it and pull in everything from the database as it is at that moment. So if you're working by yourself, I don't know how common that is for you guys, but if you're working by yourself, you probably don't need to worry too much about this. You may have to hit it occasionally if you change something, and we're going to actually hit that today as we make changes to the BIM model. But when you're working with multiple people, it's very important to hit this, especially if you're working on the same sort of stuff. Did that answer your question, or talk about what you wanted me to mention?
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Yeah, most of the stuff with the Takeoff program is what we call in programming detached. Like, this window is detached from the database. You tell it when to read stuff from the database, you tell it when to save stuff back to the database, but you have to initiate that communication. It's not attached to it directly, and it doesn't see any changes that happen. Just like UPD. UPD doesn't know that you changed data, or sorry, that doesn't make any sense. These mark numbers don't know if you change the data. I could change the definition of this tagline to have a whole bunch of different other parts, but this mark number won't change until I run UPD. UPD is telling the database, hey, refigure out everything and put new mark numbers everywhere. Any other questions about UPD before we do more fun stuff? The next thing we're going to run is QBIM. So QBIM is a command that I mean, this is all well and good, and all this data is in the back end, but QBIM will actually show us what this building looks like. You usually have to run UPD right before you run QBIM. QBIM only shows you what your last UPD did. So if I ran QBIM if I fixed these detail numbers and didn't run UPD to get these mark numbers, and I ran QBIM on these horizontals, I still would get nothing. So it only shows you what the last UPD has done. So let's just try it right now. So I'm going to run QBIM, and you can select tags, which is usually how I do it. But stick walls tend to take a while to run QBIM, so I'm just going to do a small portion of it just to save time, so we're not sitting here watching this run all the time. So I'm just going to select a couple bays out of this wall here. I'll hit enter, and it's going to create a BIM model for me. And if this takes too long, then I'll even select fewer things. My computer is pretty quick. That's the first QBIM I've ever ran on this computer, and it felt pretty fast. All right, so here's my BIM model. It has all the parts in it that we called out, right? We told it what parts to put on each of those taglines. We told it where those parts are by running layout. So it uses all that information to create this 3D model of everything. And let me change this to shaded just so it feels better. I don't actually like working in the shaded view. I like the other view, but this will help people who aren't used to looking at the wireframe see what actually is going on here. Otherwise, it just looks like a mess of lines. So what you see here is what it's actually going to fabricate when you make fab tickets. It's actually what you're taking off. So this is a really nice visual way to see that you have everything, and everything is the right length and whatnot, which is what we're really going to use this thing for. This is a separate file with the same name as the file you started with. So this is 205 in my training folder. This is 205 in the models folder under my Takeoff Program folder. So if you ever need to just open this, usually you don't ever have to, but if you did, you can find it there. You almost never have to save this drawing because a lot of times the workflow is make some data changes or tagline changes, run UPD, run BIM, QBIM, do some more stuff, find more changes that you need to make, close this without saving, make your data changes, UPD, QBIM, do some more stuff, make more changes, UPD, QBIM. Like it's that kind of cycle. Also, along with QBIM is this interface here in the Takeoff Properties window. And if you didn't have it, if you've never opened it before, it would pop open. But this lists all the parts with their mark number. You can click on any part here and it'll highlight it in AutoCAD. Let me turn back to wireframe. It's getting me nervous here, that shaded stuff. So you can click on any part and you can see it getting selected here, right? There's a pressure bar. It tells you this is the part number. It even gives you a little picture of it. This is the mark number that it has currently. This is its current length in inches. Looks like I got some notches. That's interesting. I don't know if you guys would probably get these too. Some stuff comes from the server, but we'll get into that in a future lesson. Yeah, so you can go either way. You can select here and find a part. You can go the other way, select here and find that part. This is kind of your interface for dealing with this BIM model, other than the visual aspect of it. Any questions about QBIM and the Takeoff Properties window? You'll be running it a lot. It's unavoidable practice, so. All right. So now we're going to get into the getting the right length on all of these parts. And I like doing this in the BIM model itself. There were times in the past where it was a little buggy, but now I think it's the best place to do it. I fixed most of those bugs. So the length of all these parts is based on the length of the tagline that it came from. The adjustment numbers here, which which are filled in with the changes that we're going to make, but you can fill them in manually. And that's just how much longer it is from than the tagline. So if this is a vertical, so this is how much longer than the tagline this vertical is, and how much longer at the top, and this is how much longer at the bottom. For horizontals, this is how much longer it is on the left versus right, left and right. So you could fill them in there. We're not gonna do that. There's also this fixed length column here. So for any parts that are always the same length, regardless of how long the tagline is, you can put the length here, which is something we're gonna do for these shear block clips for sure, because they're always the same length. Another thing that determines the length of a part is this AutoCAD setting, which we'll go over in depth in one of the last few lessons. But just know that it can affect your length. And then also along with that, along with AutoCAD, the layout. So the comment, depending on if you have AutoCAD on or not, if you do have it on, the layout will affect the length. Because if you're talking about a 90-degree corner, how far back the part is on the detail, like if it's a horizontal that's getting mitered 45 degrees, how far back that horizontal is determines how long the part's going to be. So this layout can affect your size if you're getting if you have miters, if you have AutoCAD miters and stuff. All right. So I'm going to do the main parts first, I think. The main body parts. And I'm going to do that so we can do it in here, but I'm going to do it in the BIM model because it's much more visual and it's a lot easier to see what the heck's going on. So let's just start with this jam piece here. So I'm going to hide all of that just by hiding objects so I don't have to see them. And then I usually like to look directly on the side like this and see where this vertical is going. And by the way, the orientation of this BIM model, it assumes you're doing units. So it lies everything flat on the XY plane. So if I go here, this is the top of the elevation. So here's my jam, right? And right now the jam is ending at the bottom of the head, which is not where I want it. It needs to come up to here. And you should be able to see that in the detail, or just know it. So the way I'm going to affect the length of this is all you have to do is select the thing you want to change. And on each end of the extrusion, you should get a little arrow like that. And that's a grip, just like a normal AutoCAD grip, just like your lines. It's like if you had a line like this and you select it, you're going to have little grips that can do things. This is the same thing, but on a solid. So there's a hot point on this grip. It's not at the center of the arrow. It's right at the base of the arrow, like that. If you click, you can change the length of this vertical. And it only even without F8 on, without ortho on, it only will go in the direction that the extrusion is going. So you don't have to worry about using perpendicular O-snaps or anything like that. You just know that this thing needs to be at the top. So I'm going to use my endpoint to click up here, and now it lines up perfectly with the top. Cool. Notice it updated my length here. it crossed out this mark number because it knows that if you run UPD again with this updated, with this change, it's not going to be that mark number anymore. That mark number is for a part that is 172 and a half. This one's now 175. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do this actually quite a bit. So I got a pressure bar here and an extended cover, both of which I want to also stretch in the same way. They should run all the way up to the top of the head. So I'm going to hold down the control key, just like if you were doing lines and you wanted to select multiple grips. You can hold down, I think it's the control key. No, it's not the control key. Shift. Hold down Shift. You can activate both of those grips. Then when you let go of Shift and you click on one, it's going to move both and put it up there at the top. So now I can see if I select my pressure bar and my cover, they're both going up to here. Let's do the bottom. And then after that, we'll save this. So same thing at the bottom. Here's my vertical. It should be running all the way to the bottom of the sill. Same with my cover. Same with my pressure bar. So I'm going to hold down Shift, select all of these grips, then let go of Shift, click again, and drag them all to the bottom. Done, at least with that vertical. So that's the right length. Remember, we're just focusing on length right now. We want all these parts to be the right length so we can order the right amount of that material. So now my jam and its pressure bar and cover are the right length. You can see it here in 3D. Looks good. So to save these changes that I've made, all these crossed out ones, you have to save this BIM model. This is the only reason you really ever have to save a BIM model is after you make changes to save them. So when I hit save, what it's going to do is it's going to translate the things that I did into data in the UD window. Okay, so I hit save. Didn't ask me any other questions. That's good. If I go back here and I go look at my jam, hey, wait, these numbers didn't change. And that's because this isn't attached. Just like I was saying before, it changed the database, but it didn't change my window here. This isn't aware of this window, so it doesn't know that this changed. So you can see the changes if we hit refresh. So once I hit refresh under Jam L, you'll see that it changed all of these parts to 2.5, and it looks like I missed one, the filler. Because that's how far I stretched all those parts in the BIM model, is the 2.5. So it put those adjustments here. You could do multiple parts at once. I should have gotten the filler. Where is the filler? Oh, it's back here. It's hiding. There it is. Yeah, definitely missed one. So let me go and do that. Match it to the others. And you can go about making everything, at least all the long parts, the right length. So I change that one. I save to save those changes. I don't see it here. I have to hit refresh. And now they're all 2.5. Any questions about stretching parts in the BIM model? I don't know how many of you actually have done it that way. Usually, most people do this because that's existed longer. But I think stretching in the BIM model works really well now. Even better in some ways. Especially if you're a beginner and you're new and you don't know what that number should have been. You'll know you'll get the right answer if you do it that way. All right, let me unhide the other vertical. Let's do a couple. Well, I don't know if we have time for that. Probably don't have time to do more than just this one, but you should go through your whole model and make sure everything is the right length. So that means all the verts. Once you know how that works, it is probably easier to just go through here. But we could QBIM the whole model and do them all at once. It's also, actually, yeah, let me do that. Let's demonstrate that. So I'm just going to close this. I'm not even going to save it because I already did save it. I'm going to re-UPD this so that my jam has the right length. I'm expecting these mark numbers, all 4 of these, to change because all of their lengths just got bigger. You see they're all 5s and 5As now. So let's do a bigger QBIM. Let's just do this whole section. If we had all the time in the world, I would just do the whole elevation, but maybe I'll just do the whole elevation. This seems to be going pretty quick. The more you select, the longer this takes. But that wasn't that bad. So far, I've only fixed the jam over here. So let's, yikes. Let's fix this vertical. So I'm going to isolate this stuff. I want some kind of reference for my stretching. So I'm going to take the head and the sill like that. And then I'm just going to isolate. When you isolate like that, it also isolates it from the list. So you only see the things that are still visible. So I can actually use the stretch command here. Stretch command and the grip, they work the same. So as long as I get the where the grip points are on here and not where the grip points are on this part, I should be okay to just use the stretch command to get all of these like that. I could also just make sure and deselect all this stuff. That base point here, and nope, stretch does not want to work, or maybe it won't show me visually. Oh, so it did work. It just doesn't show you visually where it's moving to. Let's do the same thing here. Stretch like that. I don't want to move any of those. So pick here. Notice that, again, it doesn't allow you to move the extrusion up and down like it would a line. It just does it that way. Now let's unisolate everything. And take a look. So I only changed one vertical. Right? So all of these are still at their shortened length, right? The one I changed, which is this one over here, is at the length that I stretched it to. But once I hit save here, to save the changes that I made to this one vertical to the database, it should change all the other ones. See how all the other ones moved up? Because they are all using the same use. And because they're all using the same use, they are all using the same adjustment number, so they should all change to the same length. So you don't have to fix every horizontal. The horizontals should actually be good, but if you had something to change, you don't have to change all of them. You could, but usually you don't have to because it will update all of them. This one didn't change because it's a different use. It doesn't have that cover. It's the door one. Same with this. So there will still be more things to fix here, but that's how I would go about doing it. All right, so that's saved. I can hit refresh over here to see the change in the vertical with extended cover. No adjustments, and then I should get the 2.5. Yeah. All right. Cool, let's talk about fixed length parts. So that's all well and good for the parts that are long. There's also fixed length parts, and there's a lot of them on this elevation. Most of them are tied up with the horizontals. So these ShareBot clips, according to the detail, let's open that up. So this is 11506. You can see on the detail that it says that this thing is only 1.25 inches long. Doesn't matter how long the tagline is, it's only 1.25 inches. So this is what we call a fixed length part. And to put that in this data, you go to this fixed column here at the end, and you type in whatever length you want this thing to be. So this is, and you have to put in decimals. It doesn't accept fractions. So it's 1.25 long, no matter what. But one thing to remember is whenever you fill out this box, you should also tell the program which side of the tagline this part actually is on. Otherwise, it will think that these two shear block clips are in the same place in your BIM model. So you'll just see two clips on top of each other. So whenever you fill out this box, you should also, in the Fab column here, add in something like this. So I added a parenthesis L, and then for this one, parenthesis R, because I want one on the left end of the tagline, and I want the other one on the right end of the tagline. If this was a vertical tagline, then I would use T for top and B for bottom. So yeah, if you don't put that in there, they're both going to be drawn at the left side and they'll both be on top of each other. So let me hit apply on this. I also need to do this for all the shear block clips. So the sill has shear block clips, the head has shear block clips. I need to do it on all of them. Same way, same 1.25, same L and R. Some of the other parts will also need that. So for my door header, these angles are also fixed length, right? And you can look at the horizontal detail to see that. On my verts at the door, I added the angle at the bottom to anchor it to the floor. That is also fixed length. And then I would need to put B for bottom on those. But we'll start with just the horizontal and we'll see how much time we have. So I hit apply. Again, I changed my data. So I need to close my BIM model and go back here. I've changed my data, so I need to UPD. It should recalculate. All of these clips should all be the same, at least on the horizontals, not these sill ones. But all of these all change to CL1-1A. No matter how long the tagline is, it's hard to see, but let me slide these up a bit. The CL is the shear block clip. So they're all CL1-1A. Even though this tagline is shorter than this one, they all end up at 1.25 inches long. QBIM. And I'll just do a random smattering of stuff. And then you'll see, at least here on my horizontal, I have two shear block clips now. One there, 1.25, and one way over here. And it's kind of hard to see, so I'm going to look at it from the bottom there. You can see you got one there and one there, exactly where they should be. I didn't change the sill yet, so there's still one giant shear block clip that goes all the way across. I also didn't change the head, so there's some mistakes here, but that's how you get that to be correct. Just filling in fixed length. Number one thing though is to always fill out that other box. Put this parenthesis L parenthesis R whenever you do that. All right. What's next? So any questions about getting the right lengths? Because that pretty much covers it for lengths.
Nope.
All right, cool. Some of our parts are still not going to be in the right place. That door header is a good example. So I'm going to go back to that door header, or not the door header. Well, yeah, let's do the door header. That one is easy to understand. So let me fix the door header and make these angles the right length. So I need to look at the detail, which I think is 507. So here's the door header. It's this tube, and there's an angle on the inside of the tube that that allows the field to install it and hang the thing. So this angle is attached to the verticals. There's one on each end. It's calling it out here, 3 5/8 long. So it's 3 5/8. I'm going to go over to my door header, horizontal above door header, and 3 5/8. Right, and I filled these out, so I need to fill this out as well, and I want one on the left and one on the right. I'll hit apply. Go back over here, UPD, and then I'm just going to QBIM the area above the door here. So I still got a long shear block clip there, but where's my door header? It's blending in because it's pink like everything else. I'm gonna change this thing to white just temporarily. So just so it's a little easier to pick out on the video. But you'll see that there's, and I could just use this also, but there's an angle here, right? This is the door header clip that I just made 3 5/8 long, and it's on the left side, and this is the one over here on the right side. But notice that they're not oriented correctly at all. They're not in the right place. Because everything that we've done so far, almost everything we've done so far, has been like all the long parts, they all get extruded in the same direction as the tagline that it's sitting on. So that's why it's drawing this angle in that same direction. The same direction, the tagline is running along the door head, this angle is getting extruded along the door head. Fixed length parts may not be like that. This one is one of those cases. The shear block clip is fixed length, but it is extruded in the same direction as the tagline, so it's fine. You run layout on that one. But for parts like this, where you don't run, you can't run layout on it because the thing isn't kind of visible when you look down the tagline. You need to move it manually to get it in the right spot. So I'm going to use the normal AutoCAD commands to rotate and move this thing so that it is in the right spot. And you'd have to do that for pretty much all fixed length parts that are like this, that are in this kind of situation. So I'm gonna I usually just use rotate and move, but there's a couple fancier, newer ways to do it that I don't particularly care for. But if right now by default all the BIM models are in 2D wireframe mode, but if you change it to just normal wireframe, or you change it to any one of these other ones, you get this widget here to rotate this thing or move it. So when I select the object, it creates this little thing that I can actually highlight an axis like that and click and drag, and it will move up only in that axis. Actually, you don't have to click and drag, you just click. But you can also right click on this thing and change it to the rotate gizmo, and now I can rotate it on any axis I want. So for this one, I want this little green one here, rotate it up like that. That can be pretty nice for rotations. I usually use UCS, so I'll show you how that one works too. You can also use the 3D rotate command, but I found just switching the UCS is plenty good. So this thing should be, let's let's go to a top view. I like working in that view that I was just in, but a lot of you might hate that and want to work in like a bunch of side views. So, but it is possible to just stay in this view. So let me move this. I'll just grab the midpoint of this. I don't know if this is the actual right place, but if I just take the midpoint of this and line it up to the midpoint of the inside of this tube here, I should be okay. Probably in reality, I'd want to check the actual detail. And also, you also want that number, the distance from this. This is going to be pre-attached to the vertical. I want the distance between the back of this angle and the back of the vertical to be some nice round number that the shop can measure, not something crazy. So I can actually I'll just use the distance command to find out what that distance is. That's the corner of the vert. So z-axis, it looks like I'm, what is that, 7/16, 3 7/16. That's a normal number that people can read. So that looks like a good place for that one. Let's do this here. I want to UCX. So we have some UCS commands that abbreviate how you rotate it around. So UCX will just rotate it around the x-axis 90 degrees. Then I can use the normal rotate command, rotate that 90 degrees. Of course, I should have done -90. Rotate again. 180 now. Now that's in the right place. Move midpoint of this thing to the midpoint of this thing. And then that angle should be in the right place too. You can also use point filters. There's a million different ways to do it, but pretty much any AutoCAD command to get that thing in the right spot is valid, with the exception of mirror. You can't mirror these things because you're actually changing the possible shape of this part. So yeah, just never mirror in the BIM model at all. You can mirror when you're running layout, just not in the BIM model. So I got those two in the right spot. I can hit save, same way as I did the lengths. And now in my UD window, when I hit refresh, you're gonna see some extra numbers here. Whenever you see a grayed out number here, even if it's 0, as long as it's grayed out, that means that we're not using a layout on this thing. We're using a rotation and a move that we did in the BIM model. So these parts are sort of positioned based on the BIM model. And then the next time I UPD and QBIM, these things will be in the same spot. Any questions about that? All right, so we're kind of out of time. So we'll do the finishes tomorrow. So let's just briefly talk about homework. I want you to update all the lengths of all the parts on that elevation, and you could do the whole page if you want. But so update the lengths on everything in this elevation. We still haven't added the taglines for the T-clips and stuff, so I think you probably have enough information now to be able to do that. What I want is a short tagline here that hits the center of each of these mullions, or maybe it's off to one side, I don't really care, that has a single T-clip on it, or an F-clip of a fixed length, and you'll have to rotate that one just like we did for this angle, so that, because the T-clip isn't extruded up and down, it's extruded in and out of this elevation. So you'll have to rotate that one the same way that I just did that door header angle. And that's pretty much it. Get the right lengths on all these parts and add in the T-clips and get those all positioned in the correct way. Any questions before we call it and let you guys go to lunch?
Nope.
All right. Cool, guys. Have a good one, and
Thanks,
see you
Zach.
tomorrow.
Thanks,
Hey,
Zach.
Zach.
Hey Zach, real quick, when do you think
Oh,
this video will be up on YouTube?
I'll I'll put it up as soon as I can. The last one took a while because I was making all these fancy graphics, but this one should be up probably by the time you get back from lunch. I don't have to
Cool.
cut anything out of this video either. I had that whole microphone glitch in the last video that I had to figure out how to edit out.
Hmm.
There was a lot of learning on my part with videos, but this one should go up much quicker.
Cool, cool. All right, cool, thanks.
All right. See you guys.